Welcome back to the Coach Business School podcast. Let's talk about the coaching niche that everyone's talking about. And it links into another niche that lots of people are talking about. And I think it's one of the most rapidly growing areas of coaching right now. And if you are feeling inspired by this, make sure you go to the coachbusiness.school to find out about all the incredible trainings that we have right there. So let's begin. What is this niche, you say? And let's just define what a niche is. I'm really big on this, as anyone that has trained with me will know. A niche really is a smaller subset of people where you focus your coaching. For example, my big niche in coaching has been alcohol-free performance coaching, which is designed for those in the middle lane. It's not about addiction, it's about optimal performance by taking a break from alcohol. That is a niche. That niche unlocked my coaching success. It's as simple as that. I stumbled into that by pure fluke and mistake because it was part of my own lived experience of taking a break from alcohol and having this incredible experience and thinking, how can I share that? How can I make a difference? I had the skill of coaching behind me and thought, I know what I'll do. I'll actually start coaching people in that space and helping them to take a break from alcohol to elicit optimal performance in every domain of life. And then boom, everything took off. The podcast invites started to happen. Rangan Chatterjee's podcast, Rich Rolls, Chris Evans, breakfast shows, all of those things happen because of that coaching niche. So I'm a huge believer in finding a coaching niche rather than being a generalist, because people want to work with specialists. It's as simple as that. Think about it yourself. Who would you rather work with? Someone that specializes in the exact thing that you're trying to overcome or the goal you're trying to achieve, as opposed to a generalist life coach or broad executive coach that does a bit of everything. Think about it. If you've ever got, in terms of something medical, and you need to go and see someone to solve an issue, you always want to go to the specialist, don't you? You might go to the GP just to get some broader understanding, but the second you know what this thing is, you want to go and see a specialist, right? It's exactly the same with coaching. So one of the big secrets to coaching success is to be a specialist, not a generalist. I'm really big on that, as I'm sure you all know at this stage. Now, there is a specialism that is exploding right now, and everyone's talking about it, and it's ADHD coaching, neurodiversity coaching in many ways. And the reason this is exploding, I think, at such a rate is because so many parents now are having their children diagnosed, for example, and as they go through the diagnoses, and let's just say there's a checkbox of items that might bring awareness around someone that might have ADHD or not, the parents are going through that checklist for their children and ticking all the boxes themselves. So I'm seeing lots and lots of people in my network and professional network that are now much more familiar with these things, and rightly so, which is wonderful, right? Wind back the clock 5 years, a lot of this felt very underground, whereas now it's very overt and companies are changing policy and people are such, the level of understanding and appreciation of the wonderful diversity in our brains now is just reaching this whole new level in places we just were never there before. And I think that's such a wonderful thing. And of course, with coaching, people come to coaching when there's a pain point in their life. Now you can imagine if someone's trying to manage a really busy brain, for example, that's the exact type of thing where coaching can be really beneficial. And I think the reason this particular niche is exploding is because, as mentioned, lots of parents are seeing their children go through this process and being diagnosed and self-diagnosing themselves, which I think is interesting, right? So some adults clearly are going to get properly tested, right, and having proper results from that. But most, and this is what I'm finding, are self-diagnosing with ADHD, for example, or autism, or one of these things. Now, of course, I'm not saying whether that's right or wrong, far from it. But what I am saying, that's the reality of the world that we're in. And lots of people that I coach would self-diagnose as ADHD, for example, got busy brains. And of course, anyone that understands anything about neurodiversity, ADHD, will know that these things are on a massive sliding scale. And some people carry traits rather than that specific neurodiversity. So I think there's tons of confusion about this, by the way, and lots of people misdiagnosing predominantly themselves with neurodiversity, and it might just be a trait that they have rather than neurodiversity itself. But that's another entire issue. That's not what I'm talking about this niche for, because what we can do as coaches is be there to help our clients in these situations. Now, ADHD coaching in particular is taking off for all the reasons that mentioned. So I think when people meet with something like that, they're less likely in general, and I'm generalizing here, to go to someone that might be a medical trained professional around neurodiversity or ADHD, and very often turn to something that feels much lighter and more performance based, such as a coach, basically to help them run their busy brain, for example. And maybe there's things they find very difficult to do or manage, brains firing off in a million different directions, and actually having some coaching around that to help them run their brain more efficiently and effectively is unbelievably valuable. And we're seeing this so much through our coaching. And that's what I'm finding. I'm finding more and more need and desire for me and my clients to make sure I've got tools and techniques to help them run busy brains. Now, of course, that's not a blanket across every client that I have, but it's a thing that I didn't see 5 years ago. No one spoke about that. Now, I would say 1 in 2 clients at some point in our coaching conversation will say something along the lines of, I think I've got whatever the neurodiversity is. Again, without very often any official medical diagnosis, very much a self-diagnosis. Now, again, we can argue the rights or wrongs of that all day long. I'm stepping back from that and just saying, look, the reality is I'm working with loads of clients that are self-diagnosing themselves with busy brains and other neurodiversity. Therefore, often they're looking for that kind of support within coaching. So having a skill set around that within coaching, I think is incredibly valuable, especially right now. And it's only going one direction. There's going to be more and more awareness around this, which is wonderful. And I think with that awareness, more and more people will be officially diagnosed and will get the right kind of support and help they need for those official diagnoses, which very often I think will be around coaching anyway, or a form of that. And for those that are self-diagnosing, very often it could be that working with a coach helps them manage those traits potentially, rather than something that is true neurodiversity. Or in doing that work with a coach, they realize actually there's another stepping stone for them to achieve, which is to go and get officially diagnosed and work backwards from there. However, from a coaching perspective, it's just opened up lots of opportunity to have really great coaching conversations with our clients now that have got a bit more awareness around how their brain works and maybe some of the limitations of it, and actually creating tools and coaching techniques that allow them to achieve more by being aware of those things and also running their brains on a more efficient basis. And I think that's a wonderful opportunity within coaching, but it doesn't end there. I do a lot of coaching in the world of alcohol-free performance coaching. Another brilliant specialism, and I would say if there's 2 specialisms that are still exploding and are only going one way, and it's going to be ADHD coaching and alcohol-free performance coaching. Alcohol-free performance coaching for the reason that 2.4 billion people are waking up to the fact that I don't think alcohol's serving them in the way that they thought it once did. Hence why we're seeing this huge shift, cultural shift in alcohol-free alternatives and younger generations just not drinking like we did. And with that, so many people are waking up to the fact that actually if alcohol's not serving them anymore, I might take a break or decide to cut back or stop, and actually finding that difficult. And they're not in that addicted zone. They're in that middle lane, but still finding it challenging. When people find something challenging, they're much more likely to reach out for support and help of a coach. That is why it's so skillful to place your coaching in niches such as this. And if you've got that personal passion about it, like I do, double win, because then you've got the lived experience of it, plus you've got that like desire to contribute and give back to that space. And it's a brilliant niche to be in, because lots of other people, you can bet, if you've had that lived experience of struggling with that and coming out the other side, are going through the exact same thing that you went through. Perfect for coaching. ADHD is the exact same. So if you've had that lived experience potentially as a coach, you've come out the other side, you've learned how to run your busy brain, brilliant coaching niche to spend some time with. Equally, it's a great coaching niche to understand, because as mentioned, you're going to find so many of your clients are going to self-diagnose if they haven't been officially diagnosed anyway. Now, there's a link between those 2 niches as well that I think is really interesting. And we know this medically through the research. Those with busy brains ADHD, for example, are much more likely to have a problematic relationship with alcohol because they're using alcohol to self-medicate that busy brain. So it's really important. So for those that are in the alcohol-free space, even more so, their clients, when they come out the other side of it, are more likely to demonstrate those traits or be on one of those wonderful neurodiverse scales or spectrums in a way that maybe they weren't really aware of before, or they're becoming aware of now. And when they remove alcohol, they're going to look for tools and techniques to help them run their busy brains without turning to alcohol, which they were using to self-medicate that same busy brain. So it creates another wonderful opportunity to add tons of value to your coaching clients if you're already in the alcohol-free space, by also being prepared in the ADHD space, because very often one leads to the other, or one is used to self-medicate the other. So when alcohol's removed, some of those symptoms reappear, and actually it's at that point that there might be some great coaching opportunity or value to be added through coaching. So for me right now, these are just two of the niches you could get really excited about in terms of coaching. And we offer trainings now in both of those, both alcohol-free performance coaching and ADHD coaching with the brilliant Louise. So if this is something that you're thinking, oh, that could be interesting, a great way to level up my skill set, bring a new specialism into my world as a coach, do visit thecoachbusiness.school and check out the courses there. Hopefully that was interesting and insightful. And do keep thinking about specialisms, being a specialist rather than a generalist. There's so many wonderful coaching niches out there that you can lean into. And I think that's just two of those that are really taking off right now. Until next time, keep coaching. Your coach, Andy.